Okay, hello folks, this is János, and it's real world audio with a real cat. That's Kintaro sleeping away. And today I'm going to give something that I should have made a few weeks ago. And it's for those of you who want to build LePetit and are looking for drivers. Because the original driver, the Fostex FE 103 Sigma, is not available anymore, and there's the FE103NV. That's the current produced version of it. First there was the EN version and then the NV. So all these three, the 103, 103 Sigma, EN, and the NV versions are the ones that are really like a direct lineage of that you can use in the LePetit, and you will keep like the, I would say, the highest level of compatibility to the original sound if you use the EN and the NV in the LePetit. However, let's have a look at what is the difference when you use the original driver versus the new drivers. And so the original, I'm looking at my screen, I made a list of them. So the original Fostex FE103 Sigma, that's in the original LePetit, it has a really smooth frequency response and goes out to 30 kilohertz, kind of flat with a few small ripples in it, but you can look at even like standalone tweeters or ultrasonic or super tweeters. All of them have like ripples at least as much as the 103 Sigma, some even more, despite them being just dedicated tweeters, dedicated super tweeters. So the original 103 Sigma has just an exemplary, really nice, smooth frequency response, which really translates to uh, your ability to set it up easily in a room that has a really good setup. So if you are an audiophile and you plan to set it up like a traditional audiophile system, like this is a room, and here you have the speakers, here's your rug, and there you are sitting there. You can set them up like this, and it will sound perfect. And if you have like ups and downs in the mid range and the high frequencies, then you will need to tweak with this setup, tweak how the speakers are positioned, tweak with the tone, tweak with the height to get an optimal response. It means that then you are in for a ride. And if you just A/B test them in this setting against a loudspeaker that's designed to work like that, you will not like the result, because you will see and hear colorations. That when you have the thing is in the frequency range, so the flat response is not flat, that tells you have homework to do for your room acoustics. And that's my number one route and suggestion to fix those peaks in there. What the audio community is doing, almost everyone, not that, what they're doing is notch filters. Throw a notch filter at it. Yeah, you can fix that very fast. You can take away those things. But what and I have started doing that as well. But what I noticed that while a notch filter can take out a specific region where it's designed to work, but it will also remove the life. It will remove the feeling, that the vibrancy, the speed, that quality that gives the LePetit raison d'être, so like meaning of life. So it's like if you put like a notch filter on it, you're pretty much killing it. So that's my thing, that uh, if you want like a really flat audiophile response, so you want to set it up like that, then look for those drivers that I recommend that have a flat response, and do not pick those drivers that have the peaks, because you will just really handicap your speakers if you try to fiddle with notch filters to make it work. Just pick a driver that works in your room, in your setup, with your preferences. So right away, let's jump into the most ostentatious pair of drivers that you can find in Medisound, and that's the FE, the Fostex FE103A, and that's the Alnico version of the 103. I think it's like a 70th anniversary limited edition, and it's like $750 for a pair of these tiny drivers. This is an obnoxious, totally ridiculous price. But and when I compare it, it's actually quite similar to the original 103 Sigma. It is the uh, it is the 103 Sigma, but with a few twists on it. One of it is it has an Alnico magnet, and they changed a lot of things around as well. And one of the things is that it has like really lively um, non-neutral frequency character in the upper mid-range and the highs. So you will have the same challenges with it as with the NV version of the 103, but you will have the advantage of having Alnico sound to yourself. And what does that mean? It means that it will sound a little bit less spectacular with digital media. So if you are listening mostly to digital, don't even think about it. It's money down the gutters. No, no, just get the NV instead. You'll be much, much happier with it. It will sound more defined, more detailed, more high-end than the Alnico. Will sound a little bit like lacking precision, lacking something like that. But if you listen to analog, tables are turned 180 degrees. Alnico will sound like you are listening to a live event, and then the ferrite magnet will sound like you have artifacts coming from the sound. It will sound like screechy and metallic taste to it, like they had problem and yeah, it's like, we get it. That's because analog sucks, LPs suck. Yeah, it's outdated technology. No, guys, not. You are using the wrong type of loudspeaker driver with it. That's it. So let's move on from the most expensive pair. This was just, I mentioned it as a curiosity because I guess many of you will wonder like, what do I get for that crazy price? So what do you get is that if you have a lot of money to burn and you don't mind to buy it, right? I would say if you are big on records, you have a big record collection and you have a extremely high level LP system or cassette tapes or reel-to-reel, then by all means this will be by far your best choice. If not, if your media, I mean your diet is mainly digital, forget, don't even have a second thought about it. And then next one, Mark Audio Alper 7P, and this is a 4-inch full ranger. It has a paper cone, and this is what I wrote down: superb value. It's like $59 each. It's really, really cheap. It's a very cheap driver, and it has a super smooth frequency response. So if you want to just A/B test it with another loudspeaker in a usual audiophile setup, it will extremely well work with you. And I noticed that it has such a nice smooth frequency response that reminds me of the Diaton P610MB, which is the most amazing single driver ever made traditionally. It just has the flattest frequency response without sounding flat. It sounds like an Altec voice of the theater. It's crazy. It should not sound like that, and it's just like a tiny 5.25 inch, like really, or six and a half. I think 6.5 inch, 6-inch driver. I don't know, something like that. It's a little bit bigger than this, and that's why I don't mention the Diaton here, because this is not for the LePetit project. You could actually try it, but it's not optimal for the Diaton. So that's why I don't mention the Diaton for the LePetit, but I mentioned the Mark Audio Alper 7P because this would be like something similar to the Diaton in your LePetit. So I would suspect that it would sound extremely good and because one, it has an extremely smooth frequency response. It's about 90 dB per watt meter efficient. I think what they quote is lower than this number, but when you look at the figure, then really it's around 90 dB. So you get like a 90 dB per watt meter actual working efficiency from these guys. And the self-resonant frequency is 73 Hertz, which is like a little lower even than the 103 sigma. So the bass even has it will be even more, probably even better than the original LePetit driver with this. Only drawback is that the magnet is quite weak, so it's like 3.5 Tesla. That's the field strength. The original FE 103 Sigma was 4.4 Tesla, so it's like a lot stronger. So that's my, I'm a little bit cautious about this driver, because it's telling me that things look really good on paper, really excellent on paper, but because of that lack of motor strength, it probably will not be as resolving, as fast, as accurate as the 103 Sigma. And another warning sign is the glass reinforced paper. So the cone has glass reinforcements in it, and that will make it stronger, better for like giving you more accurate bass, but it can give you like that glassy, brittle sound. I'm afraid that you might experience that. At the beginning of the break-in, it will probably be extremely bad, but as you break it in, it will lessen and lessen a lot. And how much, I don't know, but it will be up to you. So if you are sensitive to the sound of glass, that when you have a glass behind you, and sorry, Kintaro, and then you hear the resonance is coming from your window and your cabinets, glass cabinets, stuff like that, and it's greatly disturbing to you, this driver will impart a little bit of that quality. And if you are sensitive to that, this is not the driver for you. If you don't mind it, no problem, then don't worry about it. If you want drivers which are relatively inexpensive and it's available for you, maybe you already have it, try it out in the LePetit. I think you are going to have a really enjoyable, really fantastic pair of little speakers with that. Now another one, and now I marked it with the number one choice, that if I were to buy drivers, what would I buy for myself? I would buy this driver, which is the Fostex FF125WK. Now this is not a 4-inch driver, this is a 4.5-inch driver. Hello, Quintero. So it's a tiny bit bitter. It's not like 10 centimeters, but it's like 12 centimeters. But it has the same volume requirements as the original 103 Sigma. And the self-resonant oh, Kintaro is kicking the tripod. The self-resonant frequency is a whole 10 hertz, or actually 12 hertz lower than the 103 sigmas. So it's going to have much more detailed, resolved bass response compared to the original LePetit driver. So if you want to have like, if you like the LePetit, but I want more accurate bass than this is your driver, and you can put it in the same cabinet, and you will get more defined bass, more controlled bass with this driver. And also it has 5.6 Tesla magnetic field, so it's 1 Tesla more than the 103 Sigma. So this also gives us the potential for a lot more control over the driver, a lot more ability to resolve. Kentaro is constantly kicking the tripod. So it will have a lot more ability to resolve nuances, tiny details. So it will find like a class higher, most likely. So if you have already the LePetit, then this would be one driver that you could upgrade from the 103 Sigma. And it also has about the same efficiency though, but it has 1.6 millimeter X max, so the maximum cone excursion, or the air gap where the voice coil is within the full magnetic field of the driver, is about like 7 or 8 times wider than the LePetit. So that's going to give you a much higher dynamic working range. So it means that you can crank the volume higher and it won't start distorting on you. Because what Jürgen noticed, that when he cranks up the volume and it sounds awesome, but then he notices that it starts to sound fatiguing. Now, if you use the FF125WK, because it has like 8 times wider gap, it means that when it's making those really big cone movements, it's still within the gap. So the driver has full control over it. And when you are at that volume level, that the lows are really coming to life, but the highs are still within control. Because what happens with the LePetit is that the 103 sigma has 0.35 millimeter where the voice coil is in the full magnetic circuit. So it means that when you are like medium listening level, it's still there. But if you have like a crank up the volume, it means that the highs, they will be still not traveling you further than that, like 20 kilohertz signal, 10 kilohertz plus, 0.35 millimeter is plenty. You can crank high and it will still play within that. But the problem is that the bass requires much higher cone excursion. So now it will travel out maybe like a millimeter. And when it travels out a millimeter, what happens that when it's being thrown out from the optimal magnetic circuit, out there, there's still some magnetic strength, but it's much weaker than what is here in the gap, in the full strength part of the magnetic circuit. So and if it's just the bass, then it's kind of like you are getting like second and third order harmonic distortion added to it, because now at this part of the cone movement you have different energy driving it, less energy, so it will show up as clipping. So it will be, if it clips both ends, then it will be like a third order harmonic distortion coming to it. And how we hear a third order harmonic distortion is we hear that the sound is getting louder. If it just clips like one half of the sine wave more than the other, then that will show up like as a second order harmonic distortion. How does that sound? That it's gaining body. So that's why when you are pushing the LePetit, you will hear it's like, wow, it's gaining volume, it's gaining body, because the second and third order harmonic distortion is ramping up. And however, this is fine for the bass, and that's why even if you crank it high, the bass will be really enjoyable. However, the problem will be the highs, and that's why you notice the fatiguing, because even though when it's out, like let's say we are asking it to make like a big 100 hertz note, right? So at the speed, like at 100 hertz, it's traveling like that. But at the same time, we are asking it to make a 10 kilohertz note. But so that's 100 times faster. So it means that for that 10 kilohertz note, like because it's like 100 times faster, like a third, like not damn. So here we have this part, and maybe let's see that because of the 100 hertz excursion, the driver spends maybe 2/3 of its time outside of the optimal gap. So it means that 2/3 of the time, the high frequencies will have very diminished energy driving them, compared to 1/3 of the time when they will have perfect energy driving them. And that's really hard for the ear. Your ear will really experience that as fatigue, that there's like 100 hertz periodicity, or actually the periodicity by the current bass note, that defines how much of the high frequency is reproduced without optimal magnetic backing. And this is where the FF125WK will tremendously change the game, because here we have an 8 times longer excursion ability, so 8 times longer magnetic gap. So the driver, when it's making those massively larger cone movements, it's still within the control. So when it's doing that big bass, it still has full control over the high frequencies. So it won't be able to, it will be able to reproduce those highs. And also the second thing, because it's a tiny bit bigger, so it's not 4-inch but 4.5-inch, it also has a larger surface area, so that gives it a tremendous benefit for the low end. So actually the low end will be even fuller sounding. So if you think that the LePetit is not full sounding enough for you, especially in the mid bass area or upper mid bass, then this driver will add a notch of those qualities. And so that's why these are the reasons through which I would choose this driver. It has a layered paper cone, and the frequency response curve is kind of okay, except it has a 7 kilohertz peak. And when I look at it, it corresponds to the voice coil diameter, which is also the diameter of the metallic cap that is there that's producing the highs. And I think what's happening, Kintaro is kicking the tripod again. What's happening is that the when the cone is moving, that metallic central part. Okay, Kintaro, I got you. That metallic dome, it starts to ring, and it rings at 7 kilohertz. That's the diameter of the driver. So that's the self-resonant frequency of the cone, and that's what we see in the graph. So what you can do with that is to treat that metal cone. That's what I would do. Add some dampening on it, maybe add some lacquer on it, try with some sort of things like dampen it, and that would just tremendously lower that 7 kilohertz vibration that probably, just if you use it as it is, it gives a metallic ringing to the sound. And now we are already at 22 minutes. So that's it. I'm not going any longer. I have a long list of drivers still, but I'm going to give now a rest. I've been making videos for about over an hour now, so I need a little break before I continue with this list. So thank you for listening. Please like, and I hope I have given a few driver choices. What is going to come? I'm going to give you also have a second look. Oh, not a second look. This is a new look. This is the Fostex NV, but not the 103, 126 NV, the 4.5-inch version of the driver that Jürgen is using, which is like a half an inch bigger. So let's see what's the difference between that and what he's using. Is it worth to use it? And I will have a look at that. Another one, another Mark Audio Alper 7MS Gray, and I will have a look at that. And then Parts Express drivers, we'll look at the Tank Band W5-2143 and the Tank Band W4-1320SJ, and something which is a really budget driver, the Dynavox LY401F, which is just $26 driver. So if you are really strapped for cash and you are really looking for something truly budget, and that's all you can afford is like $26 per driver, let's have a look at it. Is it worth to consider it? And what can it bring for the table? Hint, hint, is just an absolutely insanely good driver for that price. It's crazy. So and it has some features that even drivers like 10 times its price don't have. So I hope you are all excited to tweak, yes, and also to look out for the next video. And I promise with that, I think I will be done for the drivers to look for your LePetit. So if you are looking for drivers, then this is the video to watch, plus the next video, and then you have kind of the outlook on those drivers which I really think are a good match for the LePetit cabinet build. Like, subscribe. Awesome. Bye bye.